Today, we're looking at two powerful cars. The Chevrolet Corvette and the Dodge Challenger. We'll drive through and see how each car evolved in technology and style. Why did Chevy task boat engineers to design the Corvette engine? What's the link between the Corvette and NASA? Why did Dodge discontinue the Challenger twice, only to reemerge more muscular and powerful than ever before? Also, we'll find out which used models are best to buy and which ones to avoid and more. So hop in and let's go for a ride. Did you know the Chevy Corvette holds the title as America's first sports car? The initial Corvette design was inspired by English and European sports cars that were raced after World War II. Harley Earl, the designer, thought it was time for General Motors to have a sports car. He began working on a secret project called Project Opel. Then he presented it to the general manager Ed Cole. Cole loved the concept, and soon America saw the first Chevrolet Corvette in 1953. The Corvette was one of the first cars made entirely of fiberglass, which is a fairly common material used in cars today. But back then it was very rare. The Corvette helped to boost the popularity of fiberglass, and soon afterwards many more cars started incorporating fiberglass in their construction, either in whole or in part. Believe it or not, the initial Corvette logo was different from what we see today. The very first logo featured a checkered flag crossed with the American flag, but then Chevy learned that it was illegal to use the American flag for commercial branding purposes. So just 4 days before the Corvette's debut, the logo was redesigned to the one we know today, the fleur-de-lis with the Chevrolet bow. The Corvette didn't become an American icon until after Chevrolet replaced the original low-power, straight six-cylinder engine with a V8 and 3-speed manual transmission in 1955. Thereafter, it really took off. For the second generation, Chevrolet added folding lights to the Corvette. Fans loved the new feature, and the lights would remain on the Corvette for 4 generations. This generation also saw the Corvette Stingray, which was designed by Bill Mitchell, GM's head of styling and design. The legend goes that he was out fishing when he caught a shark, which would later inspire his design. He even had the prototype repainted multiple times to get the exact matching color of the shark's skin. For the third generation, Chevy redesigned the Corvette. This time, they found inspiration in the Mako Shark 2 concept developed by Bill Mitchell. The C3 Corvette had a pointed snout and other details partially inspired by the short-fin Mako Shark. It became an iconic style that would last 15 years and even survive hard economic times. Meanwhile, in 1970, Dodge introduced the Challenger to America. They were 6 years late to the pony show, and they marketed the Challenger by combining performance and customization like 9 engine options and eye-candy colors like Plum Crazy and Hemi Orange. Customers could even customize their Challenger with bumblebee stripes, twin-scooped hood, shaker hoods, and rear deck wings. Throughout its first generation, Dodge refreshed the Challenger multiple times, primarily with different grille and lighting features. But sadly, Dodge discontinued production after just 4 years. But 4 years later, the Challenger returned. But sadly, it was mostly in name because it was actually a rebadged Mitsubishi Galant Lambda. It was a flop. It didn't have the styling or design cues from the previous Challenger generation. Its less powerful engine didn't live up to its pony status. In 1984, Dodge discontinued production again. Meanwhile, Chevy redesigned the Corvette. The fourth generation was sleek and futuristic. With each engine upgrade, the C4 actually increased in horsepower. In 1990, the Corvette ZR1 was introduced with the LT5 engine, which was designed by Lotus and built in the Mercury Mercruiser division. Why did Chevrolet task boat engineers at the Marine division to create the engine? Well, Chevy wanted a motor with a relatively small displacement, yet could output over 400 horsepower. Boats usually have similar displacements to power ratios. By 1993, the motor was able to produce 405 horsepower, helping the ZR1 to perform well in road tests, break speed records, and eventually become a collectible. Chevrolet then introduced the LS1 V8 engine, which had 385 horsepower and would become a legend of its own. It really helped to advance the 5th generation Corvette. For example, the Corvette Z06 had the first mass-produced titanium exhaust system. Why titanium? Well, titanium is incredibly strong and has a natural corrosion resistance. In fact, the high strength-to-weight ratio is the reason why the aerospace industry uses titanium. Anyway, Chevy replaced the 44-pound stainless steel system with a 26-pound titanium muffler and tailpipe assembly. The 41% lighter weight meant faster acceleration, better handling, higher cornering speeds, shorter braking distance, and increased fuel economy. Pretty much, we're talking racing technology in a street car. Chevrolet then refined the Corvette. The 6th generation was 5 inches shorter, more angular and sharper, with exposed flush headlights. It was also faster and lighter, with solid performance due to a larger engine and upgraded suspension. This generation saw the return of the convertible option alongside the coupe, and also the ZR1 high-performance variants. Around this time, after a 20-year gap, Dodge revived the Challenger, and they were smart in bringing back the retro style of the first Challenger while upgrading it with modern features. The new Challenger also had double headlights and a rectangular grille indented into the hood, reminiscent of the 1970s models. It was pretty much a modern-day replica of Dodge's early Challenger. This retro-inspired Challenger remained unchanged until 2012, when they flipped the lower grille upside down. The 2015 refresh flipped it back up and came with distinct taillights and a split grille reminiscent of the 1971 Challenger. Meanwhile, Chevrolet refreshed the Corvette's image too. The 7th generation was bolder, more aggressive, because Chevrolet wanted to target the younger demographics. This generation was the first to use the name Stingray since the C3 days. The C7 Corvette would be the last generation to have a front engine design. In the meantime, Dodge released the Challenger SRT Hellcat, a high-performance variant that came out in 2015. It was equipped with the most powerful engine Dodge had ever made, the first supercharged Chrysler Hemi engine. It was a very expensive endeavor. In fact, it almost got nixed when Chrysler temporarily paused the idea to save funds. But the Special Racing Technique team, SRT, persisted, and the project got approved. Interestingly, the first dealership Hellcat didn't last 1 hour. A 34-year-old bought the car, and barely an hour's drive from the dealership, he lost control and crashed into a tree. Police ruled out alcohol and speeding, but nonetheless, the driver was charged with careless driving. Fortunately, he and his passengers weren't injured. The only casualty was the Hellcat itself. In 2019, Dodge introduced the Challenger SRT Hellcat Red Eye. It output 797 horsepower and 707 pound-feet of torque. The 2020 Challenger SRT Superstock has the same engine as the Red Eye with the revised powertrain calibration that increases the redline from 6,300 to 6,400 RPM. So it's more powerful at 807 horsepower. A couple of years ago, Chevrolet debuted the C8 Corvette at the Kennedy Space Center during a media event that coincided with the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. So what's Chevy's link to NASA? The story goes that astronaut Alan Shepard was a longtime Corvette owner. One day, GM's chief engineer, Zora Arkus-Duntov, invited Shepard to test drive pre-production Corvette models. Soon after, GM President Ed Cole gave him a new 1962 Corvette with the deluxe Bill Mitchell interior. It was a tribute to thank the astronaut for his service, and also a clever publicity stunt. But astronauts couldn't make product endorsements. Eventually, Cole set up an executive lease program for the astronauts. It allowed astronauts Alan Shepard, Gus Grissom, and Gordon Cooper to choose 2 brand new cars every year. The astronauts usually chose a family car for their wives and a Corvette for themselves. As they drove the Corvettes 3,000 miles, GM then gave them the option to buy them at a used price. There were accounts of colorful Corvettes being lined up in the parking lots outside of astronauts' offices at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, as well as stories of Shepard and Grissom having friendly races. And that's how the link between the Corvette and NASA was born. But back to our story about the 8th generation Corvette. We're talking about the 2020 model now. The C8 Corvette comes with a new mid-engine layout, making the Corvette more competitive against big European brand names. It's powered by a 6.2-liter naturally aspirated V8 called the LT2, which generates 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque when equipped with the Z51 performance package. The C8 Corvette convertible is the first Corvette with a retractable hardtop. But now let's switch gears. If you're looking to buy a used Corvette or Dodge Challenger, which models are worth considering and which ones should you avoid? Let's start with the Dodge Challenger. You should be careful with the 2011 to 2013 models, but particularly the 2012 model. The 2012 is known for receiving the most number of complaints from owners, but it's not just that. That model is one of the worst in terms of severity of problems and repair costs. The most commonly reported problem was around electrical issues, and there were reports about the alternator going out or the engine not turning over or the power windows killing the battery. The 2012 Challenger also had 6 NHTSA issued recalls, including ones around the alternator. The 2008 model received the least number of complaints of all models, so it's a good bet if you're wanting an older used Challenger. The 2017 and 2016 Challengers have also been faring well with just a low number of complaints. As far as Chevy Corvettes are concerned, the worst model in history literally was a 1983 Corvette. Evidently, production of the 83 model got canceled due to emissions and retooling issues. You can't avoid that model because there's literally none available in the market to consider. That's because of the 43 pilots already made, the company destroyed all but one unit, and that last remaining model is currently sitting in a museum. Later, that one model faced another threat when a sinkhole opened up under the museum, but fortunately it escaped that too. Today, it's the only surviving 1983 Corvette in the world. If you're looking for a used Corvette, many consider the C6 to be the best modern Corvettes. It covers the 2005 to 2013 models. That was the generation that bought the 7-liter LS7 V8 engine. It was the first Corvette to have fixed headlights since 1962. A new C6 back in the day had a manufacturer-suggested retail price around $50,000 for standard trim and up to $100,000 for the ZR1. But if you're looking for a used one today, you can find a standard CX for less than $20,000 depending on the car's mileage and condition. A used Z06 model can be around $30,000 to $40,000, and the ZR1 trim can be in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. But now, you tell me, which do you like more and why? Please comment below. Share your stories and voice your opinion. If you like this episode, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for your support.